Welcome to Rules of Villainy, where three new trading card game players quest and challenge their way to the competitive top tables and discuss their opinions on Disney's Lorcana. This is episode 11. I'm Villain Vince, joined by my two co-hosts, Villain Andy, and the mayor of Lorcana, Brad. How you doing tonight? How we doing? It's been a week.
Great.
I feel like I haven't talked to either of you in forever because we never chat. This is the only time we talk.
I love this time.
Together, like 20 minutes ago, Vince.
Did we do draft?
I got second.
He got second.
What?
I know. And well, there's a ringer.
Oh.
Jesus brought in a ringer.
Yeah.
Okay.
New friend though. We're gonna recruit him to the team.
Heck yeah. That's exciting. I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I was super tired after my day at work and I came home and literally passed out for 4 hours basically.
Too much politicking.
Well, Andy was giving the guy the hard sell of the team. He was like, the hard sell.
Yeah.
Hear that bitch.
Yeah, he was interested. We'll have to see about a signing bonus or something.
Yeah. And Andy was, well, that's coming out of your pocket because I don't, not mine. I can tell you that. Though I do owe you still money for the card. Don't let me forget to Venmo you the $10 for the
shiny
singer. So it's just so just so folks are no like out of context. What are these folks talking about? Is I'm trying to finish my entire play, like a master and foil set of the first chapter, and I am so close, but I need a few cards. So I'm starting to hunt for some of the rare ones, or not rare, but harder to get ones. So
some would say super rare.
It is a super rare.
Buy them for pennies on the dollar and sell them to Vince for 10 times their price. Easy profit.
But yeah. So I mean, Angie's just continuing his ripping on me tonight. He's been so mean. Brad, you should be so lucky that you have a friend in your corner. Like Andy, who's been just so mean to me.
I don't know anything about that. I'm usually on the other end of that after last week. We got some good feedback of you guys ripping into me about the slow playing.
Well, Vince was pulling a Brad tonight. He was the last one playing. I had to let him know.
Yeah. Way to go.
I was not the last one. That was only the first round. But anyway, let's get into Underworld news. So yesterday we had the Lorecast. This is the third Lorecast of Disney Lorcana. They introduced set 6 Azurite Sea, which will be released on hobby stores on November 15th and will be in big box everywhere on November 25th. Folks have noticed that is not the same 2-week delay that we've noticed that we've been before, which we can also talk about. But, my favorite thing about this is we got Big Hero 6 and Chip and Dale's Rescue Rangers.
We got a bonus. We got Vince singing, which I should apologize to everybody.
Rangers.
No, don't you apologize. Your prediction didn't come true, and there's only one person to blame for that, and that is the villain himself, Villain Vince. We needed poor unfortunate souls, or is that
No. I told
Patreons only.
It's a Patreon special, so you'll have to subscribe $5 a month for Vince singing special. But yeah, and we also see, so we have Big Hero 6 and Chippendales joining. We've got a trove as always. Gift set comes back this set. We didn't have it last set for Shimmering Skies because I think the Gateway product took its place. 2 starter decks. I think Brad is probably very excited for the Scar deck box and sleeves.
Yep.
Winnie the Pooh deck box and sleeves. Man, I tell you what, they are milking the art on that Winnie the Pooh Honey Wizard. But I tell you what, no lie, love it. I'm glad they're doing it for everything. Like, I kind of want it. So Who I also want Big Tink to get that same treatment. I want Big Tink to have a product in every category as well. So please make that happen. I don't think we have a Big Tink pin. We need a Big Tink pin.
Okay.
So I want that. But
that could be the steel one for the second wave of, because all we're missing right now is green and emerald and steel. So
we're have a problem. They're going too fast. I feel like the list of cards and art that we need playmats for and sleeves for and boxes for is just growing and growing and growing, because some of these there's just so many great cards.
Yeah, it's a testament to how good the art is in this game, honestly.
Yeah. And we got 2 playmats. We got Elsa from set Shimmering Skies, this set. That's the 5th
Spirit.
Okay. I was like,
I think so.
I was like, would be like 5th column for some reason was coming to mind. I was like, that's not right. That sounds that sounds like a villain, to be honest with you. And then we've got the Donald Duck Pirate, which is the mat that I really am excited about. But of course, you both know me well enough to know that I will get both mats at some point.
Of course.
Just as I keep adding to my collection of mats. One day you're gonna I'm gonna be that hoarder. You're just gonna open my door and it's just gonna be play mats that just like topple outside of the door. But yeah, so what are your initial impressions of not Shimmering Skies, of Azure Sea?
Azurite Sea.
Azurite Sea, thank you.
Go ahead, Andy.
One, Stitch's back, my boy. He's in the gift set. So happy about that for sure. It looks like he's got at least 1 or 2 cards for the set, and then hopefully a couple more. But yeah, it seems really cool. I really liked their in depth into like a lot of the lore. They were like way too specific about like the physics of like how these giant water walls and like the flying boats. I don't even remember the name of the flying boats now. It's hard to keep up. But it was really cool to see how in depth some of this lore aspect and some of the games and really was. How about you, Brad?
I'm excited. Ryan Miller's been teasing for a while. We thought it was with Into the Inklands that his Pirates deck that he talked about in one of the first couple sets that he's excited about was where the Pirates deck was going to kick off. And he mentioned in the Lorecast yesterday, he's like, well, I probably shouldn't have said that because I was still playtesting the Pirates from this set. It's a whole entire seafaring adventure is how he described it at D23. And as we talked about a couple weeks ago, and really excited about it. Me and another local Mark have been, I haven't in a while been playing with the Pirates, but when they first came out in Inklands, we were playtesting all kinds of different pirate related decks. So like Vince, I think I like both playmats. I think I lean toward the Elsa right now because that's more my that's one of the cards I'm utilizing in my deck currently. But I think if I had to pick between the 2 mats, I'd probably pick Donald as well, just for the pirate theme. But I'm really excited to see with the rest of the set what we haven't seen yet. We've only got maybe a dozen cards out of the 204 that's coming. So, but really exciting.
Yeah, and I'm super excited for the card that hopefully we will get to reveal.
One day. One day.
Yeah, I'm excited too. I'm always excited for a new set coming out, and I really the kind of lore that Ryan Miller got into on the thing, so unfortunately we had some technical issues and weren't able to live stream it like we wanted to. Hopefully we will get those resolved for the next Lorecast. But things that I didn't notice or maybe had forgotten, like the book icon and the treble clef icon that they kind of emphasize, showing where the lore of the flavor text comes from, thought was really cool. So hearing some of those things, just the amount of design that they fit into these cards. Yeah. And also, again, just getting that lore, learning more about the world of Lorcana that we're in is really exciting.
Yeah, we're 6 sets in and still learning things about the cards that I, honestly didn't really pay too much attention to before. And then to hear that just how they do the flavor text and what the different icons mean that I never noticed was like, wow, 6 sets in, and there's still things about this card that I had no idea.
Yeah. All the way back to set 1, I think, Andy,
Yeah.
you said you picked, you like went back and looked, and
I just looked at random cards.
I also really appreciate them, celebrating our 1-year kind of anniversary of Lorcana by highlighting all the events from, D23 that just happened to Gen Con, to Gen Con's release, like all the events they went to, just, and all the creators that have also, streamed the Lorecast in the past, whether it be, Brendan from, I think, B Squared. You've got, a whole bunch of folks, and like probably, I don't want to list them all off because I think I'll probably miss someone, but yeah, it was just
There's like 30
exactly
seconds of Spessy going.
There's yeah.
Did either of you guys kind of go through the montage and see if you could find yourself in like Chicago or Gen Con? No. Yeah, frame by frame.
I need to.
By frame. I was looking for the moment where I was like jumping up in joy for when I won the 2020 format at Gen Con.
Oh, did you do that?
Like, yes. No, I didn't.
Oh. I believed you.
I wish I had
on the table and sung.
yeah. I was like, be prepared.
Threw the card on the table, took the mat, and ran away.
But yeah. We also found out dates for both the Continentals in Paris and in Hollywood, which I don't remember off the top of my head.
Brad's my date for Paris.
For Paris.
Oh, you meant the day, like the day that they happen. Okay, sorry. You said we had dates for the Continentals.
Well, yeah, we know the dates that they exist, but right. I appreciate your,
when you travel with the mayor, that you're traveling humor.
Good. But we still don't know quite when Worlds is going to be. We do know confirmed it is going to be at Walt Disney World Resort. I think there was some lingering question. I wasn't really questioning that. It made a lot of sense that it was going to be at Walt Disney World Resort, but I think there were some folks that were kind of questioning, is it going to be actually at Walt Disney World or like at a convention center in Orlando? We now have it confirmed at Walt Disney World Resort, but no dates as of yet. I would guess it's probably going to be sometime in late spring. Would you say maybe?
Yeah, I heard there. I don't know if it's been confirmed, but like a couple websites along when they reported like the text along like for the dates of the Continentals, they also reported that Worlds was in March of 2025. So I think I saw a couple other people like tweet about that and try and get that like confirmed. So I wouldn't book any flights yet. But yeah, it seems like they're probably targeting that. They probably don't want to go too far into the year because you got to start thinking about the next set of DLCs and events like that.
Right. Yeah. Which I assume will probably pick right back up relatively in similar time they did this year. So a lot of great news, a lot of like future for Lorcana out there. Speaking of future for Lorcana, Shimmering Sky Set Championships are already coming up upon us in October. So get pumped. Andy, you have some, I think, breaking news for the rules of Villainy.
Yeah, we've once again partnered with our good friends over at Grapes Games, and we are going to be live streaming their set championships at their new venue. We've got some fancy new improvements we're excited to show you on the new live stream. That should be October 6th. We don't have the exact start times or anything hammered out yet, but more details on that to come in the future. So if you're not already, make sure you subscribe, and we'll get that information out to you.
And make sure you hit that bell icon to be notified of any of our newest videos and live streams. because we're gonna be we're there. We're gonna be bigger, older, and better.
Batter.
Batter. Yeah, we are gonna be
More. Not
Well,
like
I'm working on like the
pancake
trailer. You know,
Villain
the like they're back from. And you thought the second chance Ursula's return was good, and they're back for the bigger, better, and badder event. But yeah, so I'm pretty excited about that. You and I will be casting. I think the mayor will be playing. Is that right?
I guess so. Yeah.
That's the hope.
But speaking of the mayor, we've got a villain showdown showcase between Villain Vince and the mayor. What is this about, Andy? This is your brainchild.
Yeah. So, kind of like the second chance. We've got a couple extra items here. We've got one of the non-champion branded playmats and an extra card here. And because I love you guys so much, and because you do so much for the community and the podcast, and I wanna donate these items to you guys, but obviously 2 different items, so you guys have to fight over them basically. And we workshopped a couple things. Yeah, see, we workshopped like cage match, some sort of like last to take their hand off it, maybe like survive in the wilderness for a couple years or whatever, like. But ultimately we figured, what do we love the most? Lorcana. And so we're gonna put together a fun little series, culminating in either Villain Vince or Villain Brad, the mayor, walking away with their choice of either the playmat or the card. So it is 2024, so like there's participation prizes. Everyone gets something. We're all going to win here. But
There's only one winner. It's like the Highlander. There can only be one.
But I think both of them have their eye on the playmat as the grand prize there. So we're gonna do a series of different videos showcasing a couple of the different game types that that they have for Lorcana. We're gonna try and do some pack rush. That's the official name, right?
Yep.
Was the pack battles or 2 pack battles?
Yeah.
Pack
We
rush.
did get a pack rush, right? Is
Pack
the
rush,
official
okay.
none?
So, yeah, so we're gonna do some pack
Ye-
rush games.
If not, our 71 followers who get notified of this will be sure to let us know in the comments below that we are.
I don't know why I even bother checking anything. I'll be checked for sure.
Yeah.
So yeah, we're gonna do some pack rush, maybe a multiplayer event there. So if you want to help, and then culminating in a big finale, a little more traditional constructed match. But we really want to flesh it out between Villain Vince and Villain Brad. We want to know who is the victor. So I want to open it up to you guys to let us know what's your favorite game mode of Lorcana. What are some ideas? How do you want to see Vince and Brad battle it out? And also, whose side? Who's on team the mayor and who's on team Vince? Predictions below. We'll have some videos documenting the process, and we'll keep you updated here on the podcast who is the points leader, and maybe we'll live stream the finale.
Yeah. I'm excited. I'm Brad. It's over.
I'm coming for you. What are you gonna do, brother?
Before the match, we're gonna have an official weigh-in, where we'll weigh your deck.
Okay,
and your deck we'll weigh one card and we'll multiply it by 60, and then we'll put your deck on the scale, and if it weighs any more than exactly 60 cards worth, you're gonna
You auto lose. You auto lose.
I don't actually know what happens when like a wrestler is over or underweight or something, but we'll figure out a penalty.
Yeah.
But I'm excited.
Exciting.
It's gonna be a lot of fun. We're gonna do a lot of things. So yeah, please let us know your thoughts. We'll do them. So the mayor has been relatively good at keeping eyes on our mail. So we don't have anything for Constituents Corner, but we would still want your questions. So if you've got questions about Lorcana or about, how you can be a better player, whatever questions you have for us and the villains, please be sure to leave a comment with your question. We'll check those on our YouTube videos. And also you can hit us up on social media at Rules of Villainy at Twitter. Again, the policy of Rules of Villainy is it is Twitter. Just making that clear. But yeah, so please give us a question. We want to answer your questions. Gives us something to talk about and connect with you in the community. And also, we will be just kind of foreshadowing in here in the future. There'll be other ways for you to ask questions of the villains and join our community as we grow and hopefully, give back to this community that has given so much to us.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Well put.
Next, we're going to talk a little bit about the meta development here in Shimmering Skies. We had a few tournaments over the weekend that I think are relatively illustrative of what's going on in the meta. So I think the three that stand out to me is there was the Lion Cup in France. It had 241 players. We had there were a 2K and a 1K at SCG Con in Tampa. And so 66 players in the 2K and there were 45 players in the 1K. So I think the thing that really kind of stands out to me in seeing these is that one, Blurple. What?
That's right.
Making in the top 4 in both the Lion Cup and the Disney Lorcana 2K, and just quite an emphasis on Sapphire being relatively strong in the Lion Cup. Well, yeah, it's very, very strong in the Lion Cup. But strong Lord. In the 2K. Looks like there's only one deck in the top 8 that had Sapphire, and it was also the Blurple deck. Of course, should be going out without saying that we are seeing the Ruby Amethyst. Every set, it feels like, it's like, Ruby Amethyst, not so good. It didn't get a lot of good cards. What's it like? We said the same thing in Ursula's Return. Turns out, actually, no, it's still a good deck. And then we said the same thing, Shimmering Skies, Ruby Amethyst. They didn't get great cards. And I think it's we're finding out it doesn't need good cards because it already has good cards.
Yep.
Yes. Has the best card in the game.
Yeah, what's the best card in the game, Andy?
Watch later to find out.
I will also have you know that Blurple also runs that card, and it's coming for you. Coming for your Ruby Amethyst.
Well, speaking of meta discussions and Blurple, I think I've said it on a previous podcast, and I'll continue to say it until I lose all of my set championships and scrub out of Seattle. But Amethyst, I think, is the strongest color in the game in the meta currently. I feel, while I love the red-blue deck, I feel like the Amethyst card draw is just so consistent and so powerful that when you pair it with any of the other colors, it feels fine and great. And I personally have been sort of struggling with what to pair it with. I actually have 3 deck boxes currently. One which has the Amethyst core, and then
it's just Amethyst. It's pure Amethyst, solo Amethyst.
It's only like 34 or 5 cards, and then I have the other set of both Emerald and then also Ruby, to try and pair with it. And of course, I haven't given Sapphire a fair shot in that as well. I think a lot of people say it lacks the removal, but I think it has more removal than Emerald. And I think Emerald does just fine with Amethyst.
Where
I think, I think we're gonna see Amethyst take over the meta.
Yeah, where Blurple lacks in removal, it makes up for it in like stalling with the big Elsas and even the 5-cost Elsa, where she comes out with a freeze. And if you can do the bounce package with Elsa and or how have multiple Elsas, like there's several turns where you can't even where they don't exert, they can't continue their win condition. And I was even toying with an idea today, which I haven't had time to sit down and modify my deck or anything, but I texted Mark, one of our listeners and another local. It's like, what do you think about the idea of trying to get that 7-cost genie out there? That not a lot of people are the new legendary genie from the Shimmering Skies, where if you rush him with the Cogsworth that a lot of these Blurple decks are running, he's immediately taking effect where the other side can't unexert. So you're stalling them even more, but. You get at that point, the deck is already so fine tuned, at least the ones that the additions of it, and the one that we'll probably talk about, or if we go into the actual decks tonight, where I don't know what to remove for it, but the idea of bringing him in, because I just like that card. I like the genie. I've always loved Aladdin, but it's hard to
got third.
What's that?
It's in the list that got third.
Is it really?
2 of them. Yeah.
I'm looking at the wrong
genie
list.
Main attractions.
Yeah, I don't see it. I'm looking at the wrong list.
STG Con Tampa 2K third.
Okay.
Third place, Hazed.
Wow. Okay.
Has 2 genies. He doesn't even have the. I didn't think about the Rush Cogsworth. He doesn't even have the Rush Cogsworth in here though. So I guess he just plays genie and then says, "What are you going to do about it?" And then exerts it next turn. And I do think that loses some of genie's value because like. Okay, what am I going to do about it? I'm just not going to exert the people that I don't want to unexert next turn, right? Like I exert a few of them and I leave a few that can just take out the genie when they quest. So it is kind of a weird situation. But
you know what? I mean, I hope that card gets good because I tell you what, it is the one card I have pulled a whole bunch of in Shimmering Skies. I've got like 12. I know. It's like I think I almost have 2 full play sets.
I have 2. I have 2 genies. I have 5 Camillos. I have 5 Annas. I can't pull the cards that I want.
And I have one Merlin. One.
I have 2 or 3 of those.
You guys are poking a few holes in my theory, my conspiracy theory here, but I mean, Genie is one of the most unplayable legendaries I feel there is, and or at least from a predictive standpoint, I feel like Ravensburger was like, nobody's gonna want this card. We're just gonna print 12 times as many of them as Mufasa and Naveen. That's fine. Clarabelle, we're not gonna print any of those either.
I need an alert here that's like conspiracy theory alert.
Yeah. We should start working at it every time Andy pops one.
We need a conspiracy theory segment, honestly.
My friend Kevin on his movie podcast, whenever Joey brings a wrestling reference in, you hear a bell ring, like a wrestling bell.
Mm-hmm.
Like, ding ding ding. It's so funny.
But yeah, I don't know. It's funny, Andy, to hear you say this because I really honestly thought for sure you were gonna be like 100% certified jank when it came to the Blurple deck because you've been
until recently
off of the Blurple. You've been so hard on Blurple,
and I think it's because I'm playing it.
Well,
I mean that's probably a little bit true.
Like the ink combination isn't horrific, right? Like it's fun. I like it. I just don't know that it's viable. And I think the difference now is that, well, for one, when I call it jank, it's mostly like the chosen cards that Brad often has in his deck. Okay. Like Blurple's fine, but then Brad's just got like Magicka Dispel in there or something
It's
and I'm
but
like,
it's utilized
see,
in a
see?
discard in a discard heavy meta with lemon lime
I'm,
or lemon
I'm
lime and
just
steel
messing
song.
with
You
you.
know, it's like
I know.
Magicka's good. She's a
But
2 of.
I think mostly for me is that I at this point I'm just trying to find what Amethyst's best pairing is, and I think blue, Sapphire has a little more credit than people are giving it. If Emerald works and Earl Meister has an 87% win rate with it, and people are winning Malmo games and stuff with Amethyst Emerald, like Sapphire can do what Emerald does just fine. It can delay, people. It can do inefficient removal. Honestly, I'd rather put a card into your inkwell than send it back to your hand, which is a lot of times what Emerald's doing. You know,
And
so
with the inclusion of Sapphire too, it makes your unplayable Genie a lot more playable because of the ramp, right? So you don't want a 7 cost uninkable or 8 cost uninkable with the Elsa, but if you're ramping up, which of course Elsa has the shift target, but if you get a good ramp and a good curve, then that Genie comes out a lot quicker, and it doesn't feel so bad to have it, because you have the tools to play it. And then I don't know, I'm it's going to take a lot of practicing, which I just don't have time to do much anymore, and it's a real bummer. But but I agree, the removal is hard. There's Hades that goes to your inkwell. It sucks giving the other person ink, but that hard removal of Tamatoa or something really
fine.
helps. Yeah.
See, I honestly, I will say
let
this
it
much.
go.
I
Yzma even, but you get draw from it. Sorry, Vince. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say, because actually this kind of brings me into a question I think I have for both of you. Is now in Shimmering Skies we have a lot of, well, not a lot, but we have a decent amount of cards that either put cards into your inkwell or allow your opponent to draw. And my question to you is which one do you think is worse in a
Draw.
match?
You never want to give your like the extra resource in the inkwells is fine, is great compared to giving your opponent 2 cards in the comparison of Hades versus Yzma, right? Because you're just giving them more options and more opportunities to win the game than that
Depends.
one extra ink. But
I think it really depends.
You there's a situation you'd rather give them a draw over ink.
I mean, if you think about it, like a whole new world is giving them 7 new cards. That's giving them draw as well. There's plenty of situations where you're okay with your opponent drawing. One, if you're discarding their cards, then you don't care. In fact, cards like Donald Duck are designed to have you do that. Or the cards like Clarabelle, again, you don't care about how many cards they have in their hand. So there's plenty of situations where you don't necessarily care. The Amethyst Chromacon is a perfect example of that. The hyper aggro deck runs the Chromacon, exerts it, and says, fine, you can draw a card. Fine, you can have a card off Daisy Duck. Like, you only have 2 more turns here. I'm at 16 with 12 lore on the board. Like, what do you want? Like, so I agree with you for the most part, but I definitely think there's scenarios where, and I think this is where Blurple and Sapphire removal gets a lot of the hatred, is because most of the time you think like, putting it into your inkwell is not that bad, but it can. The earlier in the game, the worse, right? Against non-Sapphire opponents, it's not as good, right? I would almost always, playing against something like Ruby Amethyst, would almost always rather just banish the character than put it into the inkwell, because it's just value. That's what Ruby Amethyst gets out of all of its cards is some value, and you've just given it more. So, and think about cards that you have to put in the inkwell, like blue or
Mufasa,
yeah. So it's situational, but generally you don't want your opponent to have more cards. The less cards they have, the less outs they have, and the more comfortably you can play your game and do what it is you need to do.
Yeah.
What about you, Vince?
I mean, I think both of you've kind of like said a lot of the same things, so I don't want to totally repeat it, but really, like, honestly, I think, you know, to push back on really what you were saying, Brad, is like, I just don't think it's that big of a deal to put an extra card in their inkwell if that's the answer that you have.
Yeah.
Because that's, you know, I mean, like, I guess at a certain point, like, there's certain Ruby Amethyst being one is probably the worst area where that is because, like, you know, you don't want them to get closer to, you know, 7, and, you know, they generally are only inking on curve. So, you know, giving them that extra ink could be bad. But at like a certain point, like, you know, it doesn't really matter in Ruby Amethyst too. So, like, if you're if you're adding an extra ink when they've already got 7, or they're gonna have 7 on the next turn, like, I don't think it's like the end of the world. It's kind of, you've got to answer their board. But I do think there are situations as a player where giving them cards isn't as bad, right? It's never ideal, but it's not as bad, you know? Because, like, you know, if you're playing hyper aggro and you're playing the Amethyst Chromacon, like, who cares if they draw a card? You want that card so you can play it. You know, you don't care what they get because your goal is to outrace them to 20 lore. And I think also in that, like, Clarabelle situation, you know, also you don't care if they have cards, but you know, so like things like you're welcome to put more cards into their hand so that you can draw more at the end of your turn and refill your hand. Probably good.
Yeah. Yep.
But other than that, like, I mean, the reason why I say that is like, think about when was the Yzma? That's a chapter 1 card, right? Or is that a
2.
chapter 2 card?
2.
The Floodborn
Chapter-
Yzma,
yeah, Floodborn, yeah. Is that you know, originally when that card came out, like, a lot of folks at locals, and we're all still kind of new to TCGs, would play that to remove a character on another opponent's board at first, and then but it, like, you started to learn, like, actually it's much more strategic to play it on yourself, so you could get that card draw and not giving your opponent. Like, it's not really, except kind of in some of these situational decks when it comes to discard, it's like, it's not really beneficial for you to give your opponent the 2 cards just to take a character off the board. Like, I mean, I guess unless that's your only answer.
Yep.
But I think that's just kind of a good example of that.
Yeah, I think in general, they look for, like, one thing I've heard that you look for to make a card really, really good is try and turn a negative that the game developer has sort of put into this card and turn that into sort of a positive. I think I learned it in the context of the new Mufasa that came out, where you think about, okay, well, you have to exert your ink and return 2 of them to your hand, so you lose 2 ink. But really, that's drawing 2 cards, right? If you count that as drawing 2 cards, now your game plan can involve inking cards that you can get back. And so, you know, for I think cards like You're Welcome into Clarabelle is another one where, like you said, you don't want to give your opponent those 2 cards. But if you can turn that negative into a net positive by having something like Clarabelle on the board, it makes the cards overall just sort of better. And so that's a fun thing to sort of look out for, is how can you turn a negative? How can you turn that frown upside down on that card? Get some value where they didn't expect you to find it.
So one thing I want to talk about on the Leon Cup is the amount of Ruby Sapphire that have placed in this. So we need to just kind of take a look at the first place by, I think it's Caillou. It's just really interesting to see so many Ruby Sapphire decks, because this is a deck that I've been testing for a few weeks now, and, you know, I'll be honest, I'm not sold on it. But so, like, looking at this deck, you know, seeing kind of this debate on, like, how, so they've got 4 T-pos, 2 1-jumps, 2 How Far It Goes, 1 Be Prepared, which is kind of wild to me. They've got 4 Vision of the Future, 2 Brawls. We've got so they don't run Hideaway. We've got Cusco Selfish Emperor instead, the 6-drop inkable here. So like what are your like thoughts here about this kind of deck?
Go ahead.
I was just say I don't understand. I don't know what matchup this deck wins. I don't understand how it won this event. Most of the testing that I've seen, like you said, 1 Be Prepared is wild. 4 big Sisus, I just haven't seen, even with 4 ice blocks, I just don't see how that could possibly get you out of the situations that Be Prepared can. Just in a mirror, you're down a Maleficent Monstrous Dragon, so you can't take out their opposing Tamatoas and their dime threats. 2 Cusco seems pretty fair, but 4 Tipos. Tipo is so harsh in the early game against any deck that's trying to go fast. If you don't get your draw engine, if you don't have your draw engine to follow up with Tipo, you are out of cards. So I'm actually very surprised that there was this much Ruby Sapphire in the top, and this list is wild.
Yeah. I mean, it really is, and I'm just trying to like that. Well, you know what? Before I go, Brad, you've got.
Yeah, no, it's I agree with Andy. The 1 Be Prepared is wild. The Visions of the Future, the Hirams, though, you have to hit those, or otherwise, like you just fall behind in the draw. But to me, it looks pretty standard. I haven't played Ruby Amethyst in a while. I know people play a lot of different variations of it. Andy's been playing an item-based one. I think John has been doing somewhat item-based as well. But yeah, it's basically you're going through your deck as fast as possible with the 1 jumps, or not the 1 jumps, the How Far I'll Goes, the Visions, which is only running 2 of, which is wild. I would probably just drop the 1 jumps or something to put all 4 How Far I'll Goes in, but. Visions of the Future allows you all 4 of those allows you to see 20 of your cards, and you're taking 1 out of all of those. It's look at 5 cards, I think, and take 1. I've never actually played that card. But so
Andy doesn't like that card.
Yeah, as long as you're hitting those, you're cycling through your deck, you're picking the cards that you need to continue forward. So I understand the reason for using it. But I think Andy's counterpoint, I'll let him speak to it, why he doesn't like that, but I understand it.
So I'll just say my biggest problem here, I think, is while it's not absolutely critical that you don't have a 1-drop at the beginning of your thing, the fact that you, like, looking at this deck, unless I'm missing something, they've only got 4 1-drop.
4 popsicles, 4 ice.
4. So they got 8 1-drops.
Yeah.
And it's just
Hiram food.
Yeah, and just the ice blocks I think in this deck are probably working actually. Like I think they're they certainly work to draw cards, but like you got to get them on the board because you need you need it for Sisu, you need it for Medusa. Without Be Prepared, those ice blocks have to do work. So you're not gonna the popsicle is. For Hiram to do card draw. I don't think you want to be using those ice blocks.
You can't. It forces you not to be able to.
Yeah. So, I don't know, but I don't love the. I just think there's a lot, and this is why I have not found a lot of love. I think it's a fun deck to play. I really like it. The item variant of this deck is a lot of fun to play. There are a lot of decision points, but the reason why I'm just not sold on this deck is because of this whole debate on like 1 jump, How Far I'll Go, Tipo, and I think arguably maybe even Chicha, which this deck isn't running, but the other deck is.
Second place is.
Yeah. The second place deck is. So Andy, what are your?
Well, I'll speak to what Brad said first. I think Visions, the problem with Visions, like you said, Brad, 4 Visions lets you see 20 cards in your deck, right? Let's try this thought exercise then. Let's randomly select 20 cards from your deck, and you only get to pick 4 of them. And the rest of them, you won't see for 5 more turns, 10 more turns, depending on your draw power. And given any scenario that you're in, can you really afford to throw away 16 cards and only choose 4 from them? You need to, I guess maybe I don't understand the math and the statistics on the filtering, but I really feel like 1 out of 5 is too rough. I feel like maybe 2 out of 5, okay, that would be an okay, thing. 1 out of 2 seems fine. Maybe 1 out of 3 would be okay. But 1 out of 5, you're putting back 4 cards statistically. At least one of those is just as good as the one you took, right? So it's really rough to do.
Yeah.
That's my biggest complaint about it.
Well, but I mean, here, I'll use my deck. Well, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We'll just say I took 5 cards. Right?
Yeah.
This is my Ruby set. So these are the 5 cards I just drew, right? So I got Hideaway. I got
situational,
Sisu,
right?
I've got Be Prepared, which actually
pretty
decent
important.
Hit.
Yep.
Sisu, another Sisu, and Maleficent Dragon.
So that was easy. That's an easy one for you.
So that's an easy one because you're going to take Be Prepared. So I'll put those on the bottom of the deck.
Location. But now you're playing Ruby Amethyst, right? And they've got a castle and a library and
and it's
2 rabbits on board or something, right? Like,
and there's
those are
also
situations you get in, but
the variance of when it's being played too. Like at the end of the game, like
So my controversial opinion here, honestly, which I know Andy will 100% disagree with, is I think Dig a Little Deeper is a better card than Vision of the Future.
It's 2 for 7. 2 out of 7.
2 for 7. You dig deeper, singable, you get 2 cards, singable. I wouldn't run 4 of them. I wouldn't run 4 of them. I could say that much.
By the math that I am believing in, the mathematics that I am subscribing to here, it says that 1 for 2 I think is good. 1 for 5, 1 out of 5 is bad. 2 out of 7 is better than 1 out of 5, but not as good as 1 out of 2. Like I don't know, and I know it's not linear, right? I know it shouldn't be linear, so I don't really know how that should extrapolate from a game design standpoint. But I tend to agree. Like, I think Dig is rough because of the uninkability and the high cost of it.
But it's
the really high cost
whereas Vision is not, and
you just then you have to calculate how often you have 8.
The thing is like I find myself that I would much rather have develop than Vision. Because I can scry the 2 cards off the top, put one goes on the bottom, but at least I have 2 options versus playing a game and I pull 5 and it's
you go into Brad mode
and I've got dime, it's like I've got 4 good cards, and stuff. And it's like, what do I do? Because here's the thing. It's like, unless this game is unless I'm playing against, where Whole New World's really common and stuff, it's like, or I'm going to play all 4 of my, Visions of the Future. The card that goes on the bottom of the deck doesn't really matter how I order them. I'm never seeing those cards again. They're just going on the bottom of the deck.
Unless you play all 4 Visions. Yeah.
So it's like, and as it's like, I guess the argument could be made. It's like, well, as the game goes later, maybe you're searching for answers, but it's like, if you're searching for answers in Ruby Sapphire, you're losing. And that's why I would argue that Dig a Little Deeper is a better card, because you can sing it, so you don't have to waste resources. I mean, even though I know Vision isn't a very expensive card and you've got a lot of resources as in this deck, but you can dig 2 cards deeper and you can pull 2 cards out. That gives you a better opportunity to trigger. And again, I'm not saying that's a card I would necessarily play. I've thought about it, testing it, but I do. Here's the thing too: is I think we can say with some certainty that at least with a good player, dig a little deeper has done a lot of work. We saw this with Ding Dong Bomb
Right.
3.
Yeah,
I've
I've been waiting to say it. Yeah, but yeah.
with that card. So
I still think you can win despite. He is a really good player despite having that dig card in his deck. He has done very well.
Yeah, but I think you would argue, like people that played him would say that card at certain times came in clutch. I know these are these arguments about like why I really like, say, Spellbook, right?
Yeah.
It's like I know people don't
Same
like
argument.
but that same argument goes into play. Is like when it works, if it works for you, and it finds you the answers you need. This is ultimately the way I view some of these cards, and this is why I don't like Vision of the Future. Is you got to play to your outs, right? We always talk about that on this podcast. Play to your outs, and anytime you play hidden, Vision of the Future, just feels bad. Where it's like on turn 1, develop your brain, fine, great. Or I could play develop your brain, turn 5, whatever. It doesn't really matter because I'm drawing more cards, trying to figure out getting more options and answers. It's like at any time, why do I want to look at 5 cards to pull 1 and put potentially 4 good cards back?
Yep. And although, like, if you think about it, would you rather pay 8 to see 7 and take 2 or pay 4 to see 10 and take 2? Right. So, there's the argument that it can be sung, and there's together. I think, I think what it comes down to is a consistency thing. That cards like Spellbook or Dig a Little Deeper, you're right. You're sitting there and you're playing for top cut at a DLC. You're in the top 64, 32, and that card wins you that game. Another great example is Big Sisu. How impactful that card was in the finals against was it Steel Song, I believe, in Dallas when Ed won. But I think even he admitted that card is not the best card in his deck. And it did, because it does. If the card has to be more consistently valuable to the deck that it's in. So I feel like some of these just don't bring that as much, like Dig and Vision. So yeah, it might help you win 1 or 2, but if you played thousands of games, how impactful is it over those 1,000 of games? And it might still be positively impactful, but that's the other thing you have to consider is the other 1,200 cards that you could have had in there instead. Well, the color.
Yeah, I mean,
but
right.
All of the other cards that you could have had in there instead, could they have been even more impactful? Which that's the whole thing we're trying to figure out here, right? Is do all that math, extrapolate all that information, and figure all that out. But
so would you replace these then with develop? You think?
Probably. That's my immediate thought is, or at least just less, right? Like I can understand being behind and needing to find your out and wanting 5 cards, right? So maybe 2 vision, 2 develop. I think there's a whole lot of things already wrong with this first place list, in my opinion. The second place list, I think it is. Johan, I guess, is their name. This one looks like one I would be more willing to play. It does run the Chicha package, which is pretty cool. I'm a big fan of that. I think it's a little slow, in my opinion, but they have 4 Maleficent Monsters Dragons, 3 Be Prepareds. They also run 4 of those Visions of the Future, but they run Brad's favorite Ruby card from set 2, numbered 125 out of 204, named Scar.
That's right.
I didn't know if maybe there's another card, so I didn't want to like force you into that. But
No,
yeah,
100%
Rush Scar.
Yeah, my favorite card.
So I like that list a little bit better. That's probably what I would do. You ask what I would change. I would scroll down a little bit further and click on second place and look at their list.
Yeah, well, it's interesting though. I mean, I think you're right. They're playing a much slower game though here with two great, especially with the 2 Great Stone Dragons.
Which really shocks me that this list didn't. I mean, I'd be surprised to see. I'd be interested to see or hear about the finals match between those 2 and how that went. I'm guessing they played a lot of mirrors, and I feel like that Chicho list with the Great Stone Dragon should be a little more favored in the mirror, especially because that big Sisu is going to do like nothing.
I will say the one thing I do like about this deck, or 2, versus the other one is, which I think we see a lot of, is either playing 2 of the Cuscos or 2 Hideaways.
Why? Why do you like 2 of one or 2 of the other?
No, I'm saying we see a lot of either, because basically, well, I mean, because Cusco's basically
right, but like what? I'm surprised people don't. Yeah, I'm surprised people don't like mix and match them though. Or I guess I thought that's what you were pointing out, was that like everyone seems to be choosing one or the other.
Well, why would you put both? Just run
one
two of
that.
Maybe, I guess, because Hideaway is significantly cheaper, but in a blue deck, like 6 costs is nothing. Like you get the 6, you can play 6 on turn 4. So
Hideaway works in mirrors though, right? For the Fishbone.
It's a really cheap item removal. But but you're also giving them early. They get the ramp that early though, so it's
but who cares? Like, I mean, in a Sapphire deck, I don't know that that's that big of a deal.
Yeah, I mean,
you want to stay ahead on the curve.
Yeah, the earlier you give them that ink, the worse it is for you, because if you think about how much better a 3 cost is than a 2 cost, or a 4 cost is than a 3 cost, or 5, it does slow down at 7, 8-ish or whatever. So when you get to those points with Sapphire, which happens very quickly, you're just kind of like, I don't care. Now you have like 15 instead of 14. But earlier on, it can be very, very impactful to be able to play a Maui a turn earlier, or a Medusa or something a turn earlier. It's why Red Blue's strategy is to basically just ignore what's going on and ramp
the dime. The Cusco and the Hideaways are in there strictly for dime and castle, or any location that's troublesome. I guess the library now is another one, but
I think there's not enough of them.
Not enough what?
I think there's not enough of those Cuscos and Hideaways.
You don't think 2's enough in a deck that you can just cycle through?
I don't want more, but like, every Ruby Amethyst, every deck that I've played that has locations in it has far more than 2. And you're gonna pull 5 cards like Vince did, and one of them is gonna be Hideaway, and we all thought, of course, Be Prepared is the most important card there.
But the situation might call for Hideaway. If you're playing Visions, I feel like you're looking for that answer.
But if the situation doesn't call for it, and he gets to Be Prepared, and that's the answer that he needs, and I'm Ruby Amethyst, and you just play to Be Prepared, well, what do I play next?
Castle.
Probably a couple locations, right? A castle, a library, and now the red blue player is just like, well, poop. I guess maybe there goes, one of my outs to the bottom of my deck in the Hideaway, and so it's a limited number of these sorts of.
I think I'm not sold on your argument though about giving the Sapphire. Like, yeah, of course, there's some utility in not giving them more ink quicker. But I just like, if you're going to hide away something like, which I probably wouldn't necessarily do, I guess it'd be very situational. But even if you hide away something like, the fishbone quill, right?
Right.
Assuming they don't have another fishbone quill or they don't want
Right.
to play it because they'd put them behind on curve. Like you're basically just giving them for that one turn value for the quill, and like so they're gonna have that value that would be their turn anyway, basically. And so you go to your turn,
Right.
and now they don't get that extra.
They got it from being inked from the hideaway.
But I'm saying they don't get the opportunity to continue to use the fishbone to grow their ink. So it's like, yeah, you're giving them that value that one turn. Certainly like a risk to take. But my view on that is like, it's like they're going to end up with that ink anyway, right? So I probably wouldn't do that though, right? Because like there are other things you're going to want to do, turn
in this particular deck with Chicha on board, I would strongly consider probably doing it to take away their draw.
Yeah, if they have a Chicha, to take away their draw or something like that. But I think we'll have to. We know a couple Ruby Sapphire players that are fairly good. Maybe we can try and do a small video with them or something and talk about this a little more. But I think it would get used. I think one of the reasons you take Hideaway over Cusco is so that you can use it early on a Fishbone Quill, which I think is just not as ideal as it's just not ideal. It works, right? Like you said, it works. It stops that continual Fishbone happening. But to my point earlier about there being sort of these ink breakpoints, I think you play the Fishbone for 3, you ink with Fishbone to go to 4. They hide away your Fishbone. You're now at 5. Next turn, you can ink to go to 6. That's where you wanted to get that turn anyway, was to be able to get to 6 to be able to play that Medusa to get rid of whatever it is that they played.
This is ultimately though why I think I'm more of a fan of the Hideaway over the Cusco, is because I think Cusco isn't he like a 2 something, like a 2?
He's a 3/5.
3/5, yeah. So my point is like
he gets Medusa.
He gets Medusa right away, and that's like granted Sapphire.
But that's after he's done his effect.
Fair, but I'm just saying, like, I don't like.
One of the value of Cusco is that you can play him in Diamond as well, right?
Yeah, I guess
Diamond
anymore.
There's nothing to,
in some scenarios.
But I just like I don't know. It just doesn't seem like an ideal play line in my opinion. I mean, this is what I struggle with this deck, is I think there are too many like decision points that like where it's like, okay, do I play 1 of Hideaway, 1 of Cusco? Do I play 2, 1 jumps, 2, T, like what do I do? Like what's the right balance? And it's like it's all very situational, and it's like you make one choice different, and I think certain like decision trees that you have in this deck just start kind of like falling one way or another and stuff. And it's just feels like when you play it that it isn't, I wouldn't say a coin flip, but it sometimes feels like a coin flip. Like I said, I don't think it's the hyper aggro coin flip that we talk about.
Yeah.
Where it's, but it just does not feel consistent. And I think I'm saying that because, I've a long Ruby Amethyst player, and I love the consistency of the Ruby Amethyst deck. And this just does not feel consistent. And I wish I could get it to feel consistent.
One more thing about the Hideaway Cusco conversation, just going back to using it on Quill, using it on early, if it makes sense, is that both of these decks are just running 2 of either one of these. And if you use one on Quill, then you only have one more answer in your deck for Dime, which is the ultimate win condition for this deck, right? So that's why I said earlier, when you're running these cards, it's especially in a mirror match, you're specifically doing it. You have these cards for Dime because you have no answer for Dime after that.
Well, this probably goes back to the reason why you want to run Vision of the Future, right? Because of a card like Cusco, and which I'm not a strong fan of, I don't love, but if you know Cusco and Hideaway are out there, you know you've got it. Your one that one dime you play is likely going to go away because of Hideaway or Cusco. So you need to reliably find your second dime, and Hideaway is the way to search your deck in what I would say is not an efficient manner, but to try to find that next dime. I got the other option too is you could just run more dimes, but like I don't know.
Yeah.
Man,
some people are crazy and run
bad.
3. Yeah.
Yeah.
That sounds bad. I don't know what you would do differently here.
Yeah. I'm not too sure. I think ultimately we've kind of beat up on Ruby Sapphire a little bit.
Good.
Good.
No, I'm not trying to beat up on it. I'm trying to figure out how to make this deck work because it's the deck that I want to play.
I love the amount of decision points that it has, but I feel like it kind of feels like one of those games you ever play, like they're like indie games where you have to like make the food for the restaurant or whatever, and it's just like a plate that comes by and it's just like one burger, one fry, one salad, right? And you have to go grab those pieces and put it on there, but the next plate's coming and the next plate's coming and the next plate's coming. You got to fill these orders up, and those games get so hectic and you're just like
sounds like
trying
Overcooked.
to hang on. Is that one of them? Okay, cool.
Is that the one where like everybody was playing on social media for a while? I'm sorry, like
Could be.
going off on a tangent.
Could be.
But anyway, go on.
The point is though, like you said earlier, Vince, something about you're sort of already losing, the match when you're having to dig for some of these outs and choose, which one to take, and choosing the be prepared because you need it over the dime that now you can't win the game, right? Like, well, you need this to continue playing the game, but you put away the one you needed to win the game. It it just, you're constantly having to fill up these plates with food and send them out. And if you don't have the right combination of answers, you lose. And I feel like that's very, very rough to have to play. And you have to make those decisions almost perfectly. And then I think even then it's not as good as some people think it is.
Yeah. Well, any last thoughts on these tournaments?
Saw DeCandio got second again with his Steel Song, a little different variation of it, but over in the SPG. He did not, which was really funny because he was prepared for that. I sent you guys a screenshot from his Twitter where Din Kang Pham called him out on it because DeCandio previously said in the last week was that if you're not running 4 Naveen's, you're wrong. And in this specific deck, he was only running 3. And since he got second, he's like, see, I proved my point. You got to run 4.
Would have got first with 4.
Yep.
All right. Well, we're going on to our favorite segment, Villain of the Week. Brad, the mayor, who is our villain this week?
Our villain this week is what Andy alluded to earlier. The best card in Lorcana, arguably, or maybe not arguably, Merlin Rabbit from Set 2, Rise of the Floodborn. You want to read it, or do you want me to do it?
No, it's all you, buddy. All you.
Merlin Rabbit is a Storyborn mentor and sorcerer, an Amethyst uncommon, 4-cost uninkable, 2 strength, 3 willpower, and quests for 1 lore. His ability is wow, I screwed it up. Hobbity Hip, since they changed that around on me. When you play this character and when he leaves play, you may draw a card. The art is by Michaela Martin, and his flavor text says, "It was turning out to be a bad hair day." Pun being hair.
I just want to say it's a rare, not an uncommon. So.
Oh no! I wrote this.
I didn't want to give the commenters the chance to to roast you, Rad. I just wanted to
I
get
even
out in front of the the mistake we made and
Nope,
apologize.
it's all right. It's all right. Next week we'll do
try
it again.
We'll try it
Try
again.
This one was on me because all I did was update the cost or the text from Ursula last week, and I didn't look at I even put the card back into the docket like you requested, Andy. # bring card images back.
Yeah,
and I didn't look at because I knew goat was uncommon, and for whatever reason I just assumed rabbit was too. That one's on me. I will take the fall here.
Yeah, you can't just be giving out the best card in the game for 15 cents in every other booster pack.
Yep.
No. Here's the thing. You know damn well that if a card was actually really good in the game, even if it was a common, it'd be the least printed common. Like, they're like, guess what? You can play 99 puppies in a deck. And I can't tell you how many commons I've gotten in a box that I've just got like
no puppies
dozens of. I barely have a play set of all 4
each puppy,
all 5 variants of puppy.
I must have opened 3 cases that set, and I very, very consistently got 2 puppies per box. That's 24 booster packs, 2 puppies, and if I was lucky, I'd get a foil. 3 puppies. Let's go. That is very, very rough.
Well, we transitioned from rabbits to puppies.
Let's talk a little bit about Merlin Rabbit from the Sword and the Stone.
Correct.
This is that whole kind of series between the Mim Merlin battle sequence, but we've talked a lot about this card on this podcast, but I think we all recognize its biggest power is its card draw, right?
Yeah. He came out in set 2, Rise of the Floodborn, where they introduced the bounce package, even part of the starter decks. And it's all Merlin and Mim. They all have enter the board effects. Merlin specifically in your favor. Merlin or Madam Mim is more of returning cards to your hand. So they pair well with this one and the goat specifically, where the goat comes in and out, gives you 1 lore, which you would think is very, very strong. But what's even arguably stronger is the card draw engine that you get from this rabbit. You put the rabbit out, then you play the 2-cost snake, Madam Mim snake, bounce him right back. You draw 2 cards off of this. You play this card on one turn. You sing Friends, who's all friends on the other side, which allows you to draw 2 cards on your next turn, and then bounce him with snake or any other means. You've gotten 4 cards off of this card in 2 turns, and then you can just play him again next turn. So it's one of those cards where if you have the right engine with your hand and everything, that he just continuously gives you more and more cards. And one of the key things that you alluded to earlier, Vince, was in my Blurple deck, there's often times where I'll play Rabbit and then Yzma him so I can draw 3. I'll put him back into my deck, draw 3 cards off of that for returning the rabbit, drawing 2 cards off Yzma, and what do you know? Maybe I'll draw one of my other rabbits or the same one because the deck gets shuffled. It's absolutely insane and the must-play card in any Amethyst deck.
So my hot take here is that I think Rabbit allows Amethyst to be the most reliable card draw engine.
Oh yeah.
Hands
down. That's not a hot take.
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Well, I don't know. I think some people might argue that Hiram and the item recycling might be more.
Oh, with Hiram.
Yeah, would be. I think that might be the competition it's in. But yeah.
Everyone talks about the Tamatoa Hiram recursion and the draw engine loop that you can get with that. That happens so late in a game. Most of the time, it only really matters in a very long, drawn out control mirror or something like that. And yeah, Rabbit is just good in so many ways. You might think card draw not the best when you're playing against a whole new world deck, right? But putting a rabbit on the board feels great because even after they wheel you, you still get the replacement of that rabbit. You know you're going to get another draw off that rabbit with your new hand, which is fine. It just, I can't think of a time where it doesn't feel great to commit rabbit to the board. In obvious scenarios where you know you're about to get B prepped or C suit or something like that, you don't willingly just give up any sort of character. But if you have, let's say you're in that situation where you have a number of characters out there and you still got a nice size hand, you got other characters in your hand, and you can play more characters, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, do I play 3 more characters? Well, that plays into Be Prepared. But I could play a rabbit. That's fine. Draw out the Be Prepared, get a card off of it, combine it with cards like the library. Now you get even more cards off it. Like you said, the bounce package. It's a 2/3 that like demands removal is crazy. Only Ariel does that, I think.
Listen, I'm gonna say this much because like I am so proud of my prediction about the library becoming a decent card in the meta a few weeks ago. So I think you pair it with the library, and just it improves an already awesome card draw engine. And really, like, there's really no downs. Like, I mean, I even think of it from like, if you're when you're playing against somebody that's playing this package, it's like, sure, yeah, it's like you want to try to get rabbit off the board, but it's like, you're giving them a card, so they don't care. It's like they're getting a card. Maybe they wanted to do things like sing friends, like you said, but whatever, fine. You're still getting an extra card utility off of it. But then you let it hang out and you're like, it's like also like, I just think too, rabbit fits into that kind of line where it's like, it's not a looming threat, right? So it's like, there are other threats that are on the board that maybe you'd rather take care of. But I think that's like a mistake in a lot of respects. Cause I think, rabbit is actually the threat that, you give your opponent a card, but you let that stay on the board and stuff. It's like that they get a whole heck of a lot more utility on it. Cause you're right. They can, snake, they can fox. We've got Madam Elephant now, which is seeing some play. I agree.
Actually.
It plays into what you said with the locations perfectly, right? Like we're seeing more of the library over something like Queen's Castle because the Queen's Castle has the extra lore, but the library only has, the library has that one additional willpower. We don't need the lore. We want the card draw. So you throw all of your people in there. Now, it used to be able to just take out the person in the Queen's Castle, card draw threat removed. Now you can't do that. Now you have to take out the location first, and it shows that the card draw power is incredible. And I have a hot take. I think the fact that it's uninkable is a positive, and the reason I say that, I think it's positive.
That's not a hot take.
Positive. The fact that it's uninkable is a plus. Is good for the card, not negative. That's hot take.
Okay, I'll let you finish. I'm sorry.
Would you rather rabbit?
I'm sorry
be
for
inkable?
Kanyeing you. No, not
okay,
at all.
so then normally, the uninkable part is a negative. Wait, what do you mean no? Yes, you want it to be, unless you're playing against it. Like, yes, you want the card. Whose side are we on here, Brad? You're on the rabbit side. It's the villain of the week. We chose it for its accolades and its ability as a fellow villain.
I'm sorry for Kanyeing you. No, I don't think that it should be an inkable card. Yes, as a player, I want all my cards to be inkable,
right,
but I think
it would be incredibly good if it was inkable. So, like, the uninkability is supposed to be the downside. So the hot take is, I think the uninkability is actually a positive in that it forces you to play it. Because I have seen so many players ink goats, ink foxes. Snake's a little easier to ink. But you ink these cards, goat especially, isn't uninkable. I think it was it was Ed, I guess, or one of the prominent Ruby Amethyst players that I think it was Ed before he won the DLC, or maybe he learned this from someone else. They were basically talking over how a lot of these cards, even though they are inkable, you have to count them as uninkables because you don't ever want to be putting them in your inkwell because they are so important to your game plan. So a card like Rabbit being uninkable stops you from ever making the mistake of putting this card into your inkwell when you 100% should be playing it and milking it for all the value that you can possibly get.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's 100% right. I don't even think that's actually a hot take. Like, because I think about the amount of times that it's like you'd be so tempted in a scenario to ink it, and man, would that be and I'll give you an example. I'll give you an example of what that looks like. Say you're turn 7 going into Be Prepared. Your opponent has a full board. You have no inkable cards in hand. And then you'd like ink it. You'd want to ink it to play your
You'd have to ink it though. Then at that point, I would hot take. I want it to be inkable at that point.
Yeah, see, this is but my argument there is like
you're losing the game. You need that B prep.
But my argument would be though there is just like you're getting the card draw to then potentially get your inkable card, get to be prep on your next turn, so that you get that answer. Because here's the thing, it's like I actually like hands down, Rabbit is better than Goat. Right? Yeah. Like Goat is a good card in the end game. Like if you know how many games have we played where it's like, you box Goat your way to that 20 lore and stuff, but it's like I see Goat in like first 4 turns, I really don't care. Like it goes, it's like if I have an opportunity to, arguably even in some instances, although like I think this is probably going to be the most hot take I have of all hot takes, is arguably I even think there are scenarios in which rare, but still inking friends on the other side. Fine.
It's fine. Yeah.
If you have to.
That's not too hot.
Rabbit, like, I just think like it's a body, gets you a card. It's going to guaranteed get you 2 cards.
Yep.
Yeah. There's not a scenario where you don't get the second card.
There's not a scenario in which you don't get those cards. Right. Exactly.
One now, one later.
Yeah. So, it is, it's such a good card. And I think it's a staple why if you are not running 4 of these in any Amethyst deck you're playing, you're wrong. You're just flat out wrong.
You're playing hyper aggro, which you're still wrong for doing that.
Yeah.
No, I'm just kidding. You play any deck that you want, but yes, I concur. This should be a 4 of in every deck, every Amethyst deck, and every
even
deck
decks that aren't running purple.
Well, every deck should have Amethyst in it because it's the best color.
Yeah.
So,
all right. Well, with that, any last takes on our villain of the week?
I just want to shout out John, one of our most vocal listeners. He taught me the last time we were practicing for set championships. You see a rabbit, you kill a rabbit because he's just that powerful. So
pesky wabbit.
Yep,
just wabbits.
Well, I think that's the wrong IP, but that's all right.
Yeah.
Let us know your opinion. Is Merlin Rabbit the villain of the week, or is there another card you think is the true villain of the week? You let us know down in the comments below. If you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen. We're also on YouTube, so please be sure to like and subscribe. And as always, hit that bell icon to be notified of our next episode. Until next time, stay safe, fellow villains. Be wary of wannabe heroes who want to disrupt your villainous plans. And as always, remember the rules of villainy.